I'm curious, can you truly accept and feel loved by someone else if you don't learn to love yourself?
Oh, no, I don't think so. Yeah. Because you don't believe it. You know, if you think you are undeserving of love, and if you think you're a piece of shit, and if you think that, you're not good enough, when someone says, I think you're great and I love you, you honestly will think they're lying to you.
Even if you're chasing them and even if you're trying to be with them.
Yeah, you might feel validated or special. You get that kind of, that fix, I create a lot of relationship advice, like food advice, that I always refer to people as like Sour Patch Kids. I had this like epiphany. I was like, what? I was dating an actress at the time, and her sister was asking me for relationship advice, and she was talking about this guy over and over about like, he would go out with me, we'd do all these boyfriend and girlfriend things, and then they would hook up, and then he would disappear, and then she'd feel like crap afterwards. And I'm like, you know who he is? He's a Sour Patch Kid. She was like, what do you mean? And I was just like, well, like when I eat Sour Patch Kids, I love them. I mean, even when I talk about them right now, my mouth is salivating, just thinking about it. And every once in a while, I'll indulge in a bag of Sour Patch Kids. But every time I eat it, even though I get that fix and it's so good going in, I inevitably always feel like crap because, well, they're crappy food. Nothing about Sour Patch Kids will nourish your body. You're not going to get healthy out of putting Sour Patch Kids in your body. So that fix is always followed by that hangover of being crappy. And a lot of people are kind of that Sour Patch Kids or that hangover of that fix of validation, that temporary short-term feeling of excitement, the euphoria of feeling enough, only followed by that kind of hangover of not feeling good enough. So back to you, like if you don't really love yourself and you don't truly believe it, they might compliment you. They might say this, I love you, and you're kind of caught off guard and you're feeling good, but then you'll get in your head. You'll be like, well, do they really? Are you sure? They can't really love me. It's just like you look in the mirror and you're kind of disgusted with yourself. And then, it'll be followed by that hangover of that kind of, that excitement going away. And so, yeah, I think it really is important to truly be comfortable with who you are. As I get older, I'm sure you've done this too. Like, again, you're never a finished product. Like I always want to work on myself. I always want to work on my bad habits, of which I have many. But I also have gotten to the point in my life, and I remember a moment when Natalie and I first started dating, and she was giving me a hard time because I don't ever close cabinet doors. I leave things open. I'm a very disorganized person. And I said to her, I'm like, listen, I promise you'll always work on this, but I just want you to know, this is also who I am. This is like, I've never been good at this, and I remember, and I was kind of half joking, but like just me being able to say that to her and just say, I have some really bad habits. And honestly, my brain works a certain way that I've tried so hard to be good at this stuff and correct it, but it's just hard for me. I don't know how to do this. Yeah. And just to say that out loud to her, and young 23-year-old me I would never have acknowledged that. Oh yeah, no, I can do that. I'm right on that, babe. I'll master that. I was never willing to acknowledge that there's some things that are just really hard for me. Wow. I'm really not good at this. I'm really going to struggle with this. This is a weakness of mine.
And when you can say that and someone else can see and accept it.
Yeah, and say, it's annoying, but okay. I'll put up with it. Yeah, accept it. Like, it's a lot easier. Because even if those little things of pretending that you're somehow going to master closing cabinet doors or never be forgivable, that you're not being honest with yourself, you're not being honest with them, and then that subconscious brain feels like they're going to find out about me. And usually our bad habits could run much deeper than not being able to close cabinet doors. And so that subconscious and fear thought of they're going to find out who I really am, I think will often lead to that like fear of abandonment and rejection, and always kind of live in that state of like fear of like not being enough and things like that.
Why do you think so many people settle in relationships for something they know is not right for them?
Fear of finding it elsewhere, I think. Yeah. Fear of wasted time. I think, me about to be a father for the first time, I want to figure out how I can teach my daughter perspective which I don't know if you can. I remember going through a heartbreak after my fiance cheated on me. We were living together, and I didn't want to keep living with her.
Man,
so I moved in with grandma,
Wow.
who also lived in downtown Milwaukee at the time. She's a hip grandma, but grandma nonetheless. That was very embarrassing for me.
How old are you now?
28.
28, yeah.
Ended up being a very memorable moment of my life. But at the time, I was living with a lot of shame.
Yes.
And my grandma, my grandfather left her for other women when she was in the 70s, and she had to raise 5 kids on her own in a time where not a lot of people were getting divorced, and not a lot of women in the workforce.
So she had shame from that. She had a shared experience.
But she also had the perspective, and she ended up dating, and and she taught me that, like, I was at a time where I thought my life was over. I'm a failure. I'm a 28-year-old man. I'm almost 30, and I've had nothing but failed relationships. So much so that now I've been engaged, and I got cheated on, and I bought this ring, and I'm an embarrassment to myself and my friend. And that's how I truly felt. And she taught me that my life wasn't over. In fact, it was probably just beginning, that you're only 28. And, I don't know when I'm going to die, but she was banking on the fact that I would live as long as she had, and I had a lot of years left, and I might have some more loves that might not work out, and life is definitely a journey. And when you find that right person, it might be much longer than you realize, but from now you might have to be more patient. But there's so many opportunities to reinvent yourself, which I'm really grateful that I learned from my grandmother Phyllis. And I think back to that guy, that 20-year-old man, and I think about how many times I've now reinvented myself only at 43 years old. I was an accounting major, got a job as an accountant. Then I decided to get into sales, had a successful sales career in corporate America, quit that, left that, went on reality TV, had a little stint on reality TV, and then got into, podcasting and being, really interested in relationships and social dynamics. And, now I'm, doing what I'm doing now, but who knows how long I'm going to do this, hopefully for a long time, but you never know. Life brings you challenges, and just, I think we think that once we enter our 20s that we somehow have to lock in to whatever it is we're doing. And that fear of, starting over is, I think, scary for a lot of people. But I have learned, and, that sometimes starting over is really the best, just to press that reset button. It's never really too late to press that reset button, to reinvent yourself into something completely different. I can't think of how many times in my 20s when I thought to myself, hey, what if I went back to school, or what if I did that? And thinking, oh man, that's like 3 years, 3-year commitment. I got to do that. And then 3 years would go by.
Oh.
And then I would think back and look, I remember that time 3 years ago now. I was thinking about, what if I went back to school? And I thought to myself, well, I haven't really done anything that significant in those 3 years. And had I gone back to school, I would have been right where I wanted to be, but I didn't do anything. And why didn't I? And then I stopped doing that. I started being more of a doer and saying yes to things. I wasn't much of a risk taker in my 20s. I've become a big risk taker later in life. I'll quit my job, go on this TV show, move out to LA with kind of a hope and dream. But yeah, I played it kind of close to the vest in my 20s, and I realized that didn't get me very far.